Greetings, this is Cherokee Billy, and welcome to this podcast where we're going to be talking about the transformative power of music. And joining Ray and me today is our special guest, Michael Devin of Whitesnake and the Dead Daisies. So welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me back, Billy. It's good to be here.
Hey, it's a pleasure. You know, people really enjoyed the last time you were on. We covered so many subjects, but the main purpose of this one is the transformative power of music. What do you want to say something, Michael? You kick it off.
The transformative power of music. Well, I would say that music certainly has the potential to be transformative. It's not always. We don't have to go further back in history. I know that there is still a lot of music being produced today that is transformative, but I think we are in a place now where our music is largely used for entertainment purposes. The further back we go...
music has always been kind of an entertainment, even if it was used spiritually or whatever. You know, my thoughts anyway.
Yeah, I would take it a step further. I think that there are instances in history where music is used in ritual, a certain set of tones would be used to invoke a kind of ecstasy, a state of ecstasy, usually in conjunction with other things, whether that would be any kind of compound or substance or drug, let's say, followed by some kind of physical action, whether that be dancing or gestures in some way, and then a set of tones, a specific set of tones that would excite the individual to a place of higher vibration, right? So I would say that that's going beyond entertainment and into the world of, let's just say, more purposeful music. You can see it in go ahead.
In the Bible, it talks about, in the throne, that the music is there, the angels singing, and there's music. So music is everywhere, the best way I can put it. Go ahead.
I would not disagree. I mean, I think our voices in speaking are offering some kind of music. I mean, what are we really talking about with music? We're talking about a language that's built on tone, so it's really a language that's built on frequency, right? And how we interpret that, at least that bandwidth that we can hear with the human ear of frequency, and we use our voices to express emotions, even if we're not singing notes per se. We're still using it in a way that's musical, because music is used to express some kind of emotion, whether that be romance or anger or excitement or whatever, feel good, feel bad, feel
music,
whatever it is.
I think music has connections on so many different levels, but when you hear a certain song, it may take you back to a time and a place that was really wonderful, or you may hear another song that takes you back to a very sad time in your life. So it can move you from glad to sadness, one or the other. It can move you any way. And it's very powerful, and often in the work that I do, I tell people to listen to positive music. Get away from what they're listening to that's not positive, or they're watching movies with a lot of killing. anything like that is not good for the soul. You got to elevate it. And same with music. You want to listen to things that do transform you, that help you get above where you are.
Right.
My thoughts.
And that's, I guess that's where I'm saying, that's where I draw a line of delineation between entertainment, meaning just something that is, largely disposable, because, entertainment for me anyway is pretty much disposable. If it transcends entertainment, it becomes something, it becomes art, right? It becomes something that somehow invokes or provokes some kind of feeling that's higher than just something I hear and I dig the beat, and so we move on. There's something about other aspects and productions of music that elevates my soul, for lack of a better expression, to other places. You can go back to like the Roslyn Chapel, let's say, right? And that there's still a lot of mystery surrounding the architecture. This is in Scotland, but there are these up on the ceiling. There are these within the arches. There are these designs that I guess they call them cubes, and these cubes are arranged, etched in stone, that is, but they're arranged in a musically sequential way. So people have been spending decades, if not centuries, trying to decipher what these tones are and what they were used for. Clearly, you're now taking into account acoustics and the acoustic space you're in. You're in this stone chapel with really high, cathedral ceilings, and if there were a group of people singing these tones in concert, my assumption is that sequence, they know it as something that elevates them, as something that brings them into this, potentially brings them into another kind of mental space or another realm. And I think that goes beyond entertainment. I think that now we're heading into a place of spirituality, or a communion with God.
You're speaking of tones. I'm reminded. Remember the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind? How it was those sequence, the tones that spoke to the aliens, and was the connection with those tones.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? The way the way to communicate was by pulling a Casio keyboard out onto the tarmac and running it through a giant PA and hitting a very specific note sequence. Right. So what we have to realize with music is that it's affecting the human body in ways we can't see. I understand music has a big effect on our psyches, right, inside of our minds, because it connects to our thoughts and feelings. And there's nostalgia, and we connect memories to these songs. But I think stripping all of that away, taking self out of it, and just seeing it from the perspective of physiology, one's physical makeup, that tones, frequency, can have profound effect on the state of the human body and the human mind. So it goes beyond the realm of packaging up, an artist or whatever that has a set of songs that we're trying to sell to the people, and keeping up with modern trends and and keeping up with modern chord progressions and these kinds of things, which you hear all the time. And somebody puts out a big hit.
You know far more about it than I do. I don't listen to the music of today. Haven't listened to the music. Current for me is 40 years ago. Okay.
Yeah. Well, there seems to be
it just is.
It seemed that that was at a time when I feel like there was, I don't know if it was successful or not, but there was a time there where popular music was, being used to kind of direct a cultural movement. And, I don't think we've seen that ever since, where people were, protesting war or singing about the age of Aquarius or getting into...
That's a little more than 40 years ago, honey. That's way back. 40 years ago, 40 years ago, I think of music like Prince. That's the Police. To me, they are the more current, what they put out. And I feel that the music in the 80s was very powerful, very profound as well.
It had its moments, I think that, as we've progressed through the decades, the messages or the quality, at least in terms of what's being sold as the next big thing or the best thing or I think that the quality has has decreased, sadly. It's diminished. But I mean, it's just a reflection of the culture, really. It's just sort of, it's a chicken or the egg. I don't know which came first. I don't know if the music has kind of dumbed down the people, or if people have kind of been dumbed down.
Well, the people are dumbed down. I don't think it's because of the music. I think it's a lot of other factors. Number one, cell phones, the dumbing down of the world. And everything kind of is evolving around that. Did you ever read the book Brave New World by Aldous Huxley?
Yes I have.
I mean, what a profound, when I read it over 55 years ago, I just thought the things he was talking about would be impossible. And yet, 55 years later, 90% of what's in that book has happened. And it's about the changing and manipulation of the world. That's kind of the essence of what that book's about.
Yeah, and same with Orwell's kind of version in 1984. You've got sort of two sides of two sides of this. I mean, it's both sort of a dystopian. They're both sort of dystopian. They both are very much dystopian. The humans of the future in those books are living in what I would call a pretty dark time, except the difference being that in one of the books, people are aware of it, and in the other book, people are not aware of it. In both books,
many times, like in 1984, people were just so programmed, they went along with what was happening in it. And that's where I'm speaking of today. People are becoming programmed. They are. No ways around it. And to me, the number one culprit is cell phones, smartphones. I call them stupid phones.
Yeah, and cell phones and, laptops and these kinds of things, I mean, what are they really? They are, I know they are communication devices, and they can be learning devices and all these things. I just mean, if we boil it down, we have to purchase these things. They're not free. So it's still in a consumer. We're still dealing with consumerism, and we're still dealing with, economic consumption, right? We just want to keep consuming these things to the next bigger one, better camera, faster speed, da 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 da. But really, what you're looking at is the same kind of dystopian future that's put in both of these novels, because both novels have this sort of high level of economic consumption going on in these books. But in one book, we're looking at, at least there's one character in there who understands that what he's experiencing isn't in his best interests. He wants to read books. He wants to find some kind of refuge from the eye that's constantly staring at him. And we are in that, at least as far as I can see, from 1984, we are in that reality for sure, because walk out yeah, I mean, as soon as you leave your door, literally, some people with their Ring cameras, as soon as they leave the front door, they're alerted that there's some activity going on at the front door, and they take a little video shot of it. But where does that information go? It's certainly not going only to your phone. It's going to some database somewhere and being stored somewhere.
Government.
Sure.
Government. What? Right.
I said the government.
Yeah. Somewhere. And, I forgot about in 1984 about the big eye. And, a lot of people in America don't understand, but I know you know, Michael, about how identification in Europe, they take a photo of your eye. That is the way you're being identified. Right?
They did that
right
in movies for a good while now.
Yeah, but it's become reality. Isn't that true, Michael? Because you were over in Europe last year.
Yeah, they do a face scanning, and absolutely your face, obviously your eyes are part of your face, so your eyes are getting scanned. Your eyes are a fingerprint, much like literally your fingerprints. There are details to your eye that are unique to you, and then we get into it's sort of like Terminator, the movie Terminator. I think it's Terminator 2. They are one of those movies where they need somebody's eye to open up a door, and they have to make a model of an eye. I don't know the movie, but I know there's other movies where they like literally rip a person's eye out of their head, out of the socket to open up a door, because they are fingerprints, on the skull. And maybe, I don't know that how deep the technology goes, but maybe they get a lot more out of your eye than they do out of information from your eye than they do from your fingerprint. Or maybe it's more difficult.
Obviously, there's something more.
There's something, but it's also easier to steal somebody's fingerprint than it is to steal somebody's eye. So there's.
Well, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
There's that logic behind it. We're kind of strayed away from music, but, all of this, to me, the music of today is so much, how do I put it, fabricated. It isn't from the soul. Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
I do. I think you're right, but I think that's what's being offered to us. I think, there is a lot of music being produced in the world by amazing artists who are really talented, soulful, and have something legitimate to say, and their music, can be transcendent and beautiful. You got to dig for them. You got to really look for it, and it's an active pursuit because they're not being sold in a magazine or on social media. They're not being pushed. The ones who are being pushed are the ones who are making, as you say, soulless music. Like I say, just entertainment, the pulp for entertainment. It's disposable. There's nothing about it that's intended to be long-lasting. I don't hear a Let It Be on the radio, but the only Let It Be I hear is the one that was written in 1969,
Right.
There's a whole slew of examples I could give where, there was a time where, music was still being produced to somehow enlighten or go beyond just sheer veneer and shallow entertainment. It was to offer you something to get you to think, perhaps to get you to contemplate on a topic or an idea. And yeah, there's still a lot of entertainment, even in, say, the Beatles catalog. There's still a lot of just, kind of silly love songs, to use McCartney's lyrics. But there's a lot of that too, just for entertainment. I'm not saying it was non-existent. When I'm 64 is most certainly just a silly little ditty that people like. Musically speaking, it was still far more interesting, I think, than what's going on today from a compositional standpoint. The chord sequence and the textures that were used and these kinds of things. I think today, a lot of it, if you start, if you are even, half listening, it's like somebody puts out a single, it becomes a hit, and then you'll hear 3 or 4 other songs from other artists that it's basically the same chord sequence. It's just in a different key, but it's the same exact sequence, and they're just kind of, regurgitating this thing. Not that that's even very different from, say, the 50s and 60s. If somebody put out, you can go to listen to 50s and 60s music, and everyone's borrowing from everyone.
Well, that's okay about borrowing, but I feel like when you mention sequence that things are being written in, I feel it's all a coding, and it's got a much deeper level that I know we can't get into here, but it's far more spiritual than people understand, and I'm not talking a spiritual elevated, I'm talking a spiritual negative.
Well, today we're dealing with AI.
Yeah, Ray, wait. Ray, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, you talk about, not you, but, artists like Michael Bolton, who went from the type of music he was playing to opera, Sinatra, but a lot of the older ones, it's like you said, the music, I don't know how to say it, just I guess it had more substance then. So maybe it's me, I don't know. Maybe it's just an old fart and like that type of music, I don't know.
Well,
I'll give us your
right.
perspective.
I think you're right.
Michael,
but I think it's I think you're right, but I think what it is that artists are always borrowing and absorbing from their past, and also listening to what's happening historically anyway. This is how it's generally been, and listening to what's happening now. So as we go through the decades, the centuries with music, musicians who are listening to their past, if I'm in the 60s, writing music, I'm listening to music from the 20s, 30s, 40s. I'm picking up on these things, whether my band or my art expresses any of that or not. I'm still listening somehow. It's in my DNA. Well, as we go through the decades, what is 20, 30 years prior to that artist? What's the music going on then? It's as we progress, and as the music became more a vehicle to sell things, records, and all of the product that comes with it, became big business. It wasn't always big business. Music, at one point in time, right? Musicians didn't get paid anything. There was no career in music. You either played it or you didn't. And if you played it, then that's what you did in your community. and there was a desire to be as good as you could be on it. You probably, my guess is that people spent a lot more time with their instruments in the past than they do now, because, you know, young people today, I'm not saying all of them, but I think a great majority of them, they're, you know, they are, you know, they're cyber babies. So it's like they grew up on a phone, they grew up on a computer, and the programs and the offerings that are there, they are there as product to help you write your music, quote unquote, more quickly. So I can buy a program right now that will give me a cache of chord progressions. I don't even have to know theory anymore. I can just pick a chord progression from a list and say, ooh, that one, I feel that today. You know, and maybe it's a bunch of major, it's a major chord progression. Ooh, I like that. Or maybe I'm feeling sad today. Let's find some minor chord progressions. That I have no idea, I have no idea why these chords work in concert with each other, what the relationship is, why it makes sense. So I'm just picking these kind of, you know, stock chord progressions, and then I, you know, with using my computer more, I put some beats to it. I find some other samples of maybe, you know, synthesizers or horns. I don't even have to touch a keyboard. I don't have to know anything about an instrument. I can create an entire track, and then I can open a microphone and sing something, and I can auto-tune that and affect my voice to such a degree that you don't know that I can't sing. And then I think, you know, that's great. I'm going to put this out. You know, I made something, and I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that's kind of what's happening now, is that, and it's really easy to lean on these things because it's hard work to learn theory and learn, you know, chord progressions and understand the relationships between these things. The language of music is not an easy one, by no means. So we're in a state now where we want everything kind of done for us, right? We don't want to do the work. We want to have the work done for us using computers, especially now with AI and all that bringing in.
Right.
From what I've seen, not only in music but in writing, you know, I can have AI write me an entire book, complete with
absolutely.
artwork.
You don't have to do anything.
No, I just have to scan it over, make sure there's no typos or whatever, and, you know, maybe tweak it a little bit if I'm feeling inclined and I'm that creative. But otherwise, I can literally just have this AI develop a book and put it up on Amazon, and you know, maybe not right now, but very soon you're not going to be able to tell the difference. And you know, I can ask the AI to write me a book in the voice of Jack Kerouac, or and poem in the style of Milton. You know, like, and there I am. I'm just some kid who now has in his possession what he thinks is his epic poem written in the style of Milton. You know,
one thing I found recently.
Do anything.
All right, get you. One thing I found, this probably been going on for a while, but I just discovered it, that with AI, you can dictate in your voice something, and they'll take any of your documents, a book, and they'll speak it all in your voice, and yet you won't have said a word.
Yeah, it's out there. It's not perfect, and you can hear it when you watch YouTube videos.
Some of them, yeah. Because of the way they
pronounce
certain words. You know, like Jesse Arnaz. I've listened to videos where they're talking about Jesse Arnaz, and they come out with his name as DZ and all types of ways, and you know it's a computer.
Yes. So it's not perfect, but I've also heard things that are quite spooky, where they'll take the voice of John Lennon or Elvis Presley, and they will create an AI version of a new song. Because what the AI does is it scans and analyzes probably the entire catalog of Elvis Presley very quickly, and then it deduces what are the common keys of the song, because every singer has a comfortable key that they like to sing in. They're Sinatra, so they'll find the common key, then they'll find some common chords and feels and vibes, and then they mimic the voice. It's not perfect, but it's eerily close. And the same with comedians. I heard one recently of an AI of I think it was George Carlin. I'm not sure if AI created it or if it was somebody saying AI created it. It wasn't exact, but it was interesting nonetheless. Like when we start getting into mimicry with AI, and it gets to the point of a seamless interpretation where you literally can't tell the difference. I mean, now you're basically making an artist kind of obsolete, because I can now make Beatles songs or Led Zeppelin tunes that don't require any of these people to be present. I can also, stretch it out. I can make movies that star Marilyn Monroe. She's been gone for a long time, but Marilyn Monroe and James Dean starring in Da Da Da, right? And when it becomes seamless, you can't tell the difference. Nobody's going to care, because it's getting this the entertainment. The capital E grows bigger and bigger and bigger. It moves further and further away from anything with any soul or substance. It's soulless. AI does not have any kind of soul to it. All it can do is mimic. At least at this point, it can't create anything out of thin air. It doesn't have the.
I think so that it's moving to. I feel it is moving to where it can make something out of nothing. Not using anything else. In terms of music or writing a book, I feel it can already. It's really there. I know because I do things with AI in my business, so I've seen what it can do, and I'm just stunned at, hey, it makes life easier. Do that, do this. But at the same time, so many people are losing jobs because of AI. One lady I know, she's a translator, been doing it 30 years. She can't find work. She had to go into something totally different because of automated. They don't need humans anymore. Translate. And that's just one example. But there's another graphic artist. They're being replaced. They're no longer going to be needed because the computers can do it. And who knows what all, it's going to keep escalating. But I mean, down to, again, who would have thought of translators as losing their jobs, and yet there it is.
Absolutely.
I know
narrators, voiceover artists,
right?
All of these things. If I can literally take, the guy who does all of the movie or voiceovers, that guy. I can mimic that, with using AI. I don't need that guy anymore, right? And I'm saving a ton of money, and but now what are we living in, right? We're kind of surrounded by a sort of an echo chamber of the things that we like or liked at one time, and it's familiar, and so these things just sort of keep getting produced, but nothing new, emerges, unless of course there's some kind of artistic, renaissance, a creative revolution where a younger generation comes along and says, man, I'm done with all that. I just want to give it to you with my guitar in hand as I feel it. Like Joe Strummer said, give me 3 chords in the truth, and I believe that. The truth is very hard to argue with. And I think, to circle back around to music as something that elevates you, there's a reason why it elevates you, because it's true. It's true in the actual construct. There's a truth to the harmonic and melodic relationship that you can't deny. And there's a truth, perhaps, to some of the lyrics that have come, upon us throughout history, where we hear these profound statements being made by artists. But, Bob Dylan a good example. Tom Waits is a good example, for me anyway, of people who have said things that, have kind of stuck with me, and I think, wow, that's poetic, right? What is poetry, right? Now we're getting into another form of art that is musical in a sense, because it has a rhythm, and you can employ certain rhythmic qualities that are unique to each type of poem. A haiku it has its own rhythmic quality, an iambic pentameter has its own rhythmic quality, and these kinds of things. And then you listen to music, and it lyrically it has a rhythm to it that matches the music, and so rhythm is part of music. So when we get into poetry, that's another art form that's I'm a fan of it. I really love it. I like to absorb it, but most of what I read is from long ago. I do keep my finger on the pulse of contemporary poetry, but it's even that.
Well, yes, you have to.
It's become far more conversational, the poetry of today. It's become far more, the language is just more pedestrian, if you will. It's just more casual. Not that there's, again, nothing wrong with it. It's just a sign of the times. It's a reflection of where we are as a people. We're not able to... Yeah, you've got to, if you want to read some old poetry, you got to have your dictionary out and your thesaurus out, and because some words are not used very often, and especially these days, and that takes
work.
And
there's a poetry in words, not just the poetry of writing, but just the beauty of certain words together. And again, it's kind of like it meets a musical chord in a way. Let's take Shakespeare. Oh my gosh, such brilliance. And yet how many people of today could read Shakespeare or watch a movie with, like Hamlet or something? They would be totally lost, bored, etc. Because they don't get into the beauty of it.
No, they say that Shakespeare is actually really Sir Francis Bacon, and that Shakespeare was actually never a real character, which is off topic and an interesting one nonetheless, and a rabbit hole you can go down. But aside from that, that's for the listeners if they feel like checking that out. But regardless, there's some really amazing and beautiful writing going on.
Well, so much of our terminology of words we use, expressions, all come from Shakespeare. And people don't even realize it. Offhand, I can't remember them. But there's so many that, is written by him. And it's, okay, the example, once in a blue moon, we all heard that. That comes from Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So many common things we say come from whoever wrote it. All I know is it was brilliant writing, and I love it, the poetry, the beauty of it. I read that a little bit every day of Old English. I read every day. I prefer it.
That's good.
It's just me.
The body of work of Shakespeare. Yeah, the author, he coined a lot of terms. There's a lot of words that didn't exist before Shakespeare, little words we use all the time. Admirable. To say something is admirable, that didn't exist in the English language, There's other ones, I just can't think of them, but...
Same here. I know there's a bunch. Yeah. I just can't remember them, but it's just so many things that... Go ahead.
I was going to say is, but if we go back to say like the Greeks, right, and the Greek language, ancient Greek, the oldest of it all, predating Hebrew, and obviously English, but it's a very complex language, and what it seems to me is that if you can speak that language, you're coining terms all the time yourself. That language is like flexible and pliable enough where you're making up your own, you're coining your own terms as you speak it. And I can only imagine what that must have been like to live in a society where that was how everybody spoke. I mean, how creative, right? I mean, that's a very different world than we live in now, where our language is boiling down to text talk, right? It's IDK, I don't know, and OMG, oh my God, and LOL, and you know.
And people are going back to me with technology. You know, I know we need it, etc., but it's too much reliance on it, especially people with text talk. I just lose it over that one. Because, you could maybe do a certain amount of communication, but you can't have a real conversation and people say, oh, yes, we do. No, you don't. You don't know the tone of that person. You don't know what they're implying. You don't have a clue.
You know, we've all been in those scenarios where, you know, somebody writes something or we write something to them and we're writing it, you know, tongue-in-cheek and they take it literally and you're like, man, that didn't come across right? So I never use text to, like, get in deep with people. You know, I learned my lesson with that years ago. It's like, if I got something to say to you that has meaning beyond, like, what time you coming over, I pick up a phone and I'll call you, you know, or I will sit down and, like, craft an email where I'm taking my time with my words, you know, but because text is just too rapid. It's fast, and that's how it's expected to be. But I don't think, you know,
my term. I gotta give you a term here. I call text speak cold. Cold speak. It has no warmth. It has no energy. It has no life. It's a cold.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how I see it. Cold communication.
Yeah.
Like here, we're talking.
You know, we supplement the coldness with emojis. Somehow these emojis become the expression of what we're feeling. You know, I could text something and then I insert a smiley face at the end and you understand that I'm being, you know, cute or trying to be funny, you know. I mean, we live in an emoji world, really. It's crazy how we're going, you know, it's like the band Devo. It reminds me so much of Devo and devolution, where everybody's devolving into more childlike states of being, where now it's like a thumbs up is my expression to you, a sad face with a tear, that's my expression to you. I mean, that's something that, you know, in my lifetime being, you know, approaching 50 here, it's like, that's something I would have looked at if somebody had brought me in a time machine to the future. I'd say, wow, we're like drawing little pictures. I mean, that seems so childlike, but that is where we are. That is the technology we've been handed. I am somebody who, tends to side with those who theorize that technology is not new, nothing new under the sun, as they say, and the technology of the past from civilizations long gone, where there's evidence of such, even in Egyptian civilizations. You know, there's lots of evidence pointing to the fact that pyramids were power stations, that they did have technology, that they were able to have flying devices and these kinds of things. So I wonder, I don't know, I'm no authority on it, but I do wonder if that's true. Is it possible that they were using technology in a way that wasn't so childlike, that it wasn't like, you know, ooh-wee, I'm sending a heart to you over my phone. It was more like, no, I'm using this technology to power up my entire society here. You know, the city is powered by the ether, something that we used to agree was real up until, you know, the somehow, for some reason, come the 1800s, all of a sudden nobody believes in ether anymore, that doesn't exist. And now try to get somebody to agree they think it's woo-woo. But it's actually real. It can be quantified. It can be measured. It exists. Just because you can't see it with the naked eye doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Much like your other parts of your body, right? Your electromagnetic field, your biofield. It's real. It exists. It can be measured. But we've boiled it down to woo-woo, where we call it, I can see auras. It's like, well, that's not, that, now you're sticking a new age, label on something that at one point in time, every human being was in agreement that that's part of the human body, and everybody made room for the fact that there was energy all around us that could be harnessed and used. And I think that we buried all that stuff. You want to say governments or powers that be, whomever that is, that had a desire to control. How do you control free energy?
This would go back, hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, where that change occurred. It wouldn't be anything in modern times that did it, if that makes sense.
No, I think what we have, I'm of the belief that what we call now modern technological breakthroughs, it's not a breakthrough at all. They're just pulling stuff out of the past that was in use and that was largely accepted, and they're selling it to us as these breakthroughs. I mean, just going back to the idea of sound and tone, how many, and I'm talking contemporaries, how many people have gone out there and said, I can cure cancer just by directing a frequency at the cell? Well, how come we don't use that every day? Because we should. That guy ends up getting, whatever, killed off, or his patent doesn't, get passed, or not. They get sued. It becomes a big thing. I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but we see it time and time again, even going down to something more simple where somebody creates an engine that runs on water or runs on manure or runs on, ether. Usually those guys end up dead, and their cars end up getting sent off to the wreckage yard, because there are interests involved here that don't want, and I risk sounding like getting conspiratorial, but it isn't conspiratorial. It's dollars and cents. If I'm selling you rubber tires and you come out, if I'm selling the world rubber tires and then you come out and say, hey, I got an invention where rubber tires are a thing of the past, and these tires last indefinitely. Well, they last, 150 years.
Right.
Well, that's a problem for the rubber industry. And if I come out and say I have an engine that runs on water or it runs on ether, or it's pulling energy, out of the air, that's a problem for the oil industry, right? So
yes.
This is why these
unfortunately so much comes down to big business. Now, Ray, I know you're there. You want to inject anything? We're dominating this, and I don't mean
well, that's okay. I was just listening. As far as that goes, I know for a fact they've had carburetors only because I knew somebody at a dealership. It was a Ford dealership, and they had a carburetor that they had a big engine in a Ford truck. And the guy ran it for like a month and put $5 worth of gas into it, and he thought that there was something the matter. What it was an experimental carburetor that it was able to get, miles and miles and miles of gas or to a gallon. And it's just like back in the 70s, early 70s, because I was overseas at the time. I did some reading on stuff, and people had carburetors that was able to get like 100, 120 miles to a gallon on a Cadillac. But that's when the cars were made. They would go and go and go and go, and 120 miles, you could fill up the tank and probably drive across country.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just stuff that,
What
and
happened
it's
to
all.
that? What happened? My
It,
question rate.
it
What
went
happened to all
MIA.
that?
It was either bought
Okay.
or by the oil companies, or it went MIA someplace. A guy went from one tank of gas from New York all the way down to Florida on one tank of gas, and he had, I think it was a Mercury or something like that, a big car, and and it ran. I do believe it ran on water, and I mean, it just, it's all about. To me, it's all about greed. How much money does people need? They've got $150 million, and I keep picking on the Waltons, but I mean, there's a million people out there like them. How much money do they need? I'm sure Sam Walton himself is spinning like a top. They can't spend the interest, not alone the money. And the last time I figured it out, it was like they had enough for the next 26 generations.
Well,
Wow.
If money's still going to be around at that time.
Yeah, because, money equals power, and power equals control. If I have more, because that's ultimately what I would imagine, because I'm a human too, and we all have a shadow. So if I can imagine that I'm living my life like that, where I want all the money, and eventually the money becomes, you realize it's just funny money at some point, I'm sure, once you become a billionaire. And the material things, if you could buy anything, then you're no longer motivated by the money. You're now motivated by the power that comes with it. And then with the power comes control. You would want people to do what you tell them to do, like your servants in your house, or your employees at your corporate office, or an entire
or a politician.
Yeah, you want that. And think of like Walmart, for example. Like, what are they selling? They're selling now pretty much everything and anything you kind of want. You can go get food at Walmart. You can go get beach toys at Walmart. You can go get your plants there. You can go get your bathroom stuff, your kitchen stuff, your bedroom stuff. I mean, everything, right? Toys. I mean, clothes. You could go into Walmart and basically, more or less, like, get everything you need to, get through your day. And most people do, because why? They're selling at least at a competitive price. It's not cheap. So nothing is anymore. But that it's all getting concentrated. There was a time when there were laws in place for this, right? But those laws have been largely ignored, and it looks to me like much like the future in these dystopian novels we were speaking of, where the concentration of power is held in the hands of a few, and it's the same product with the same logo. I mean, look at, say, hardware stores, just for an example. When I was a kid, there were, just in my hometown, there were a handful of hardware stores, right? There was a local guy, right, Joe's Hardware, and then there was like maybe a True Value, and then there was, there were these hardware stores. Now, all of those hardware stores are gone, every single one, and there is a Home Depot. So before, I had the choice of maybe what kind of hammer I wanted. Like, I'll go over to Joe's, see if he's got, a cheaper deal or a better quality or whatever. Now, I go get the Home Depot hammer, and that's what I've got, and I think that's where we are headed as a world, not just as an American society, but I think everywhere. Everything is getting, all the conglomerates are, and that's everywhere across the board. That's even in the music industry. All the labels it's all becoming
everything's changing. So, well, listen, we've been on here almost an hour, and I think we need to kind of sum up and close out. We got away from music a bit, but that's because everything relates to, music plays a big part in our life, and all I can say is keep thinking free don't listen to things that are being manufactured, be it music, movies. Like the movies of today, they're manufactured. It's not even real actors half the time. And if people would
That's
wake
right.
up and realize these things are not reality, like the music that's being programmed in and putting it out as a single, it isn't from the heart. It isn't from the soul. And that's the thing we want to keep it to, so we can transform with music. So Ray, you got any final thoughts?
Well, just one more thing. Michael, you had said about all this AI stuff. It just reminded me of the George Strait movie. What the heck show was that? Pure Country, where at the end he says, I'm just going to get rid of this and get rid of that. And Leslie Ann Warren says, you mean you're just going to stand there and sing? He goes, yep, that's what I'm going to do. Just stand there and sing. Get rid of everything and just stand there and sing. That would be that would be a great thing. I know that there was also a big fight when I lived in Vegas about they wanted to put they didn't want actual musicians there. They wanted to put like tapes on it, stuff like that. And the musicians went on strike and says, no, this isn't going to happen. But yeah, I mean, it's just let's just get back to the old ways of doing things to a certain point, and go from there.
Keeping humanity is important, right? Keeping humanity in the arts is important. It's crucial.
Very.
Absolutely.
And,
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would encourage people to, be an active listener. Take the time, a little bit every day. Listen to music that is outside of their comfort zones, that they don't know by memory. Put on some Beethoven, put on some Bach, put on some Chopin or,
Pavarotti.
Mozart, whatever. Yeah, Pavarotti's great. Whatever it may be, but something that challenges you and challenges your ear, and as uncomfortable as it may be at first, give it some time and listen to it enough where you can start to be familiar with it, because there are some incredibly beautiful musical moments in that music that is unlike anything we know of today. And that keeps,
Absolutely,
I think, your heart open, and it keeps your soul alive. These things are important for human beings.
And keeps you
enter into the age of robotics,
and keeps you from being just a blob. We want to go beyond
you
that.
had mentioned all those people. You had mentioned all those people, and my brain went immediately to Strauss. He's probably. I like them all, but Strauss is probably my favorite.
Yeah, Strauss has created some fantastic musical passages, no doubt about it. Beethoven's probably my go-to guy. I like Bach too for the heavier stuff, but
I'm kind of a Mozart person.
Yeah,
Verdi's
Mozart.
great. Also.
Well, we all
like
have
his,
taste, and it varies.
Yeah,
and it's fine.
And that's the beautiful thing.
But
that's what we should.
I thank
we
you.
should all be able to agree.
I'm having to cut this. Okay, I'm sorry, Michael. Hopefully we can do this again, because you always bring up great thoughts, great opinions, and I know this is going to touch a lot of people who listen to it. And I thank you, Michael, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to talk with you guys about these things. It's not everyday conversation, so I appreciate it.
No, definitely not.
And we will do it again.
Absolutely. And thank you, Ray, for taking time out, too. What?
I just said sounds great.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Ray.
Well, God bless you.
Okay.
And everyone who listens to this, may you be blessed as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Absolutely.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Or bye.